Hello, you amazing people out there, and welcome to the Amazing Action Comics Podcast, where we are all about independent comics. I'm one of your hosts, Angel, with John Pepe.
How's it going, Angel?
It's going good. I had to just peep really quickly because I see that you're wearing the Superman shirt. Is that in honor of the commercial that came out?
No, I wore it yesterday and didn't even know that the commercial dropped yesterday, and haven't changed since yesterday. So that's just
that's both amusing and disgusting.
I am hyped though about this Superman movie.
I am too, man. I mean, listen, as far as I'm concerned, James Gunn has got a good record. It started with it wasn't him. That wasn't him. So I'm not even gonna mention that movie, even though it was a great movie. But I love the Guardians of the Galaxies, trilogy.
Yeah.
I did really good with that. So if he brings that over, then yeah, I'll be happy. I think Superman, as good as Zack Snyder was, and I Man of Steel, I watched like at least once a month. Just because tonally is so different from what we got in 78, 79. But it's still such a great movie. But then it's such a Debbie Downer as well that I need to watch like the Christopher Reeve stuff afterwards just so that I can watch it off my body. And I think if James Gunn finds sort of like this in between, not as, because it was kind of campy, but there were tones to that original Superman that kind of made it feel believable. I mean, you're talking 79, so I was about 4 or 5 years old. Didn't see the movie then, obviously. Saw it later on. But graphics compared from now till then, dude, they did what nobody was able to do back then. I mean, they were pioneers in regards to rigging the system together to make you think that a god could fucking fly.
And then they made that the tagline. They're like, we know, we are so confident in what we did here. That's our tagline.
But here's what's crazy. Like, you watch it back now, you can see all the fake shit that they did. But there's only one scene that sticks out to me. And it was in the Christopher Reeves documentary that he did. And it was the one where he's flying towards the screen. The first time he puts the costume on and he's coming out of something of Solitude.
Fortress of Solitude.
There you go.
Yep.
Those are my words. Fortress of Solitude looked at the screen, and then he just leans forward and starts to glide towards the camera. And in the original script, he was just supposed to go straight. But for some reason, the system wasn't working the way that it should be working, and he's a pilot. So he decided to bank to keep freaking balance, and it came out flawless, bro. To this day, that practical visual effect made me think that a man could freaking fly.
Yeah, one of my favorite stories is that one. I love that story, and it's just kind of shows like how into it he was, and even like the later movies, he really tried to do his best with those, and especially Superman 4, like he had a story input. It really meant a lot to him, that movie, apparently.
Yeah.
And just to watch the budget just get slashed as that movie went, must have been devastating for him. And I think at that point he's like, yeah, this business sucks.
As most do, they realize that when you go down deep enough into the well hole, yeah, stuff sucks. But all good. All right, that's our Christopher Reeve story out of the way. Guys, welcome to another episode.
Consistently, I think at least for the past 10 episodes have mentioned Christopher Reeve. We maybe one we didn't once, but like ever since Superman documentary that came out, yeah, we've
it's fantastic. If you haven't watched it, you got to watch it, but it's all good. All right, welcome to another episode of the Indie Comic Review. This is where John and I get together. We read some independent, creator-owned, small press comics and give our 2 cents because there's enough information on the big two out there, even though we talk about them every now and then in the podcast. But we want to highlight, these small press, these individual creators that bring stuff to the table. But before we get to our review, just a couple of quick things. So obviously, it's been a couple of weeks already, and if you're in the industry or you visit your local comic shop, it's probably already been chatted about that, one of the biggest distributors for comics did file Chapter 11. We're talking about Diamond Comic Distributors.
For quite a while, the only distributor.
Yes, and
Yeah.
they what?
That led to problems.
Yeah, well, I mean, back in the 80s, you had multiple distributors, and then slowly but surely, Diamond just came and said, hey, we'll do that. Hey, we'll do that. Hey, we'll take that. And they took it all. And from like the mid to late 80s, they pretty much had, they were the only distributor for all comic shops in the US. They do have another branch over in the UK as well. And so we don't have all the full details except for what they have on their site. And basically all that means is in that chapter 11, they've asked for help in regards to pay off a lot of the debt that they owe. But I think simultaneously, they're looking to sell off bits of the company and eventually the whole company, which includes the distribution portion of it. So how does this affect the entire market and you guys in your comics and stuff like that? For the most part, it's not going to affect you as a consumer. You're going to be able to still go to your retail store, pick up your books. However, what books will be available to you will be affected. So what Diamond had a hold of or was responsible for distributing were everything that Lunar and PRH, which is Penguin Random House, were not distributing. So just a little bit of history real quick. That way you can see where we're going with this, because it will affect a little bit of how this show is run as well and what we've been representing. So back when COVID hit, DC took a look at their contract with Diamond Distribution because everything, the entire world came to a halt, including the distribution of comics at that point. And so DC really wanted to still get the material out. Their contract was already expired or was expiring. And so they were looking at other ways to be able to distribute. And everything comes down to cost, right? So if you're going to do something for X amount of dollars and somebody can do the same quality work for a few cents cheaper, when you're looking at big numbers, a couple pennies means couples of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars that could be of savings. So whatever happened there, DC decided to jump ship as being the exclusive distributor or having Diamond as their exclusive distribution, and jumped over to, it ended up being two companies, but we're just going to say Lunar for now because they're the ones that kind of survived this whole thing. So now Lunar Distribution is the exclusive distributor for DC Comics. Shortly after DC jumped, who jumped ship? Marvel. Marvel jumped ships and they go over to Penguin Random House, and they're exclusively distributed through Penguin Random House. Now, it didn't affect a lot of the distribution that a lot of people did, well, comic shop retailers did with Diamond, because if they wanted to stay with Diamond, they could still get their DC books, they could still get their Marvel books through Diamond, but through a wholesale route. So it was just a pricing difference on how they got their books and stuff like that. But more so, other publishers started to jump ship. So now you had Image, which is the third biggest distributor, but as we stated before, it's creator-owned content. This is why we review Image comic books. They ended up going over to Lunar as well. Then you had, I believe, Boom is going over to PRH in June. It's the deal. It's a done deal, which is another big, huge, publisher company. You have IDW that jump shipped as well. So a lot of these big publishers jump ship from Diamond, and Diamond's well was getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And what was left for Diamond was Dynamite right now, Distillery, which is exclusive to Diamond, which was sort of like these independent creators that got together. Independent creators, these well-known creators that got together, created their own publishing company, and then just went under Diamond. And then a whole list of just small press and independent publishers that were through Diamond. Now, what does that mean? It means that, as far as I know, JP Morgan came in. I think they offered up $41 million to Diamond Distribution to be able to help them out. Obviously, that stuff is either going to get paid back or whatever deal happens through that. And then I believe the gaming portion of Gaming Alliance was sold off for $49 million in that respect. So now they're looking to sell off the rest of everything else, including Diamond UK, and then what goes on here.
And that's sort of a big thing too. It's not just comics that Diamond had. Diamond had, gaming supplies. Again, it had, magazines, not just comic related magazines. It would carry books. It carried toys, apparel, statues, all that stuff that you see in shops. That a lot of that stuff did come from Diamond. And that's I think a big hit as far as like toy distribution, statues. How is that going to affect the comic shops? One thing I just kind of wanted to touch on is that, so Diamond for about the last 25, 30 years, only game in town. And part of that means you don't have the competition, so you don't have to do better. But also part of it means that you're spreading yourself really thin because you're the one distributor for all the comic shops in the country for all this time. And 25 years ago when I was working in the comic shop and to today, there is no different, maybe one minor difference in how Diamond packs their books, right? They started putting these little cardboard corner things to protect the corners of the double wide box inside with the 2 box with the double packed comics with just a thin cardboard between them. And this is, I think, the biggest thing, the biggest game changer, because Diamond notorious for having stuff arrive damaged, packed not really well, because again, only game in town, you're spreading yourself too thin, trying to get everything out to everybody, but you're also cost cutting because you have no competition. So once like Lunar started sort of packing everything in bubble wrap, and Penguin has these boxes that are cut to fit the standard comic size, and then there's paper all around those, and then there's an outer box. Like once these other companies started to take these extra levels to ensure that the books were going to less books would arrive damaged. That's when I kind of, my little spidey sense went off as a retailer, where I was like, yeah, that's going to be a problem for the big guy. and then more publishers started to jump from Diamond to these other guys, and I just saw no change really in what Diamond was doing, and to me it felt like the writing was on the wall. So that to me was a big thing, that the extra level that is done to get this stuff out to stores by these other two. I'm a big fan of competition. I think competition breeds, better product and better results. And I just don't think that Diamond was ready for it.
Yeah. And then, so on top of that, the writing was on the wall for a long time. And I think the first big marker for us was not these 2 big publishers jumping ship, but when Diamond decided to close down one of their distribution centers.
Well, that was the first death knell. Yeah.
Yes. So that was like one of the first nails. And it's, as people have complaints about Diamond, people will complain about anything.
Sure.
But for the most part, in the 20 plus years that they were distributing comics, I think they did a really good job. I think you're right. I think you're right. Yeah. I think when you're doing something for a long time, you don't have someone on your coattails saying, hey, I can do it better, then you can become complacent with certain things. Yeah. And it wasn't just distribution. I mean, there's a whole bunch of companies within that company. Well, yeah. And like you said, just spreading thin. Our concern is that, they had a thick ass preview guide that had all these publishers in it. What's going to happen to them? So if we take a look at, what's happened up to now, you got Penguin with these guys. You got Marvel Comics, Dark Horse, IDW, Archie Comics, Titan, and the Penguin. Then on the Lunar distribution, you have DC Comics, Image Comics, which are the big 2. And then you do have some small press like Ahoy, AWA, checks that you can get you could have got from both distributors. They weren't exclusive because they weren't big enough for a company to say, hey, we're just going to be all exclusive, where Image Comics and DC Comics were. So you do have some faction of smaller press and independent publisher titles under Lunar. I'm hoping that Lunar brings more on as well. But they're relatively still new as well. And if they start to add on more publishers where they have already 2 big accounts, are they willing to stretch themselves thin and add on or grow their business even more with more publishers? So it's kind of a really weird spot for anybody who's a small publisher, an independent publisher, or a small press. I don't know whether or not they're going to survive. I mean, you look at the amount of money that Diamond owes. You're looking at a couple $1 million to Marvel, and then I think $500,000 over to DC, and then the pecking order is going to go down from there. So if we take like a small publisher from Diamond, they're probably going to be way down on the list in regards to getting paid.
Well, it's funny how a few companies recently had been having problems getting stuff out or paying their talent. On filing, another small company had filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. These are publishers, that were struggling, and product wasn't hitting the shelves as a result. And then you kind of find out now, Diamond had been paying a lot of publishers that they were distributing, and you kind of start to see a little bit of the ripple effect, right? So it wasn't necessarily that all of these companies were mismanaged. These publishers were mismanaged. I think some were. I think there were some promises made that could be kept. But sure. I feel that there might also be, if you're not having that cash flow from the person that's supposed to distribute books to get you that cash flow, if that's not coming in from them, that's going to affect you as a small publisher as well. So it really does. It has such a wide-reaching ripple effect at that point,
Yeah. And it's unfortunate. I mean, what's going to suffer are these, tens, if not hundreds, of small publishers of press that were inside of Previews World, which was their monthly book that came out for solicitations. So, where do they go? Are they going to try to see if they can go into Penguin or Lunar? Because those two become the main distributors. I mean, there is the third route. And there's always been the third route. More recently was, self-distribution, just doing it yourself and just going online. But then that's just, you being in a sea of other, websites and trying to promote yourself. So there's a lot that needs to be said in regards to, Diamond closing down eventually. And it sucks to say it, but I think the writing's on that wall. So we'll see what happens. So now what does that happen and what does that mean for us? I mean, what we do is we read, small press and independent publisher books and stuff like that. And that's just going to end up being whatever is available to us in regards to what these two distributors are doing now. For the most part, it's Lunar. I mean, you have Dark Horse on that end, but it's going to be mostly Image books now, unless these other guys are producing more stuff that falls under Lunar. I love the fact that we had such a big selection and we were able to kind of dig into that library every month and say, oh, let's get this for the store and let's get this so that we can, have that opportunity. I mean, Dynamite, what is Dynamite going to do?
Right.
And all of this. So I'm almost positive they're big enough. They'll probably either end up under PRH or end up under Lunar. Not worried about them. It's all these guys that just got into the Previews World themselves and had the ability to be solicited direct to market. And my concern is direct to market, right? How long is that going to be, favorable to small press and to independent creators and stuff like that, and not just go back to just being mainstream stuff on the shelves, because it's been a long time in the making. So being able to have sort of like this distributor that was sort of like a champion for everything, including mainstream, all the way down to Joe Schmo, was fantastic. So I'm hoping there's going to be some kind of influx of, hey, the doors are open, submit to us so that we can, distribute for you as well. But we'll see. I mean, it's not like Diamond's going to close overnight. Right. It's going to take some. Well, you know what? Let me not even say that, because from the announcement of Plattsburgh closing down to when it happened was like, holy fuck. And people said, yeah. And it's like, people are like, it happened abruptly. It was not planned. They were planning to close the facility. Not that quick, because something that huge takes months to plan, get information out to all the comic shops, say, hey, we're closing out Plattsburgh, we're shifting out systems. There may be a little bit of disturbance. No, there was a disturbance in the force as soon as Plattsburgh closed down. So yeah, so it's a. I mean, listen, when Diamond became the only distributor in the 80s, that was a shock to the system.
Yeah.
And now we have another shock to the system, with DC leaving way before, then Marvel leaving, and then now this happening. And I think every now and then you need this shakeup to kind of have these guys reinvent themselves and then do something. My only issue is that small press, right? They'll just fall through the cracks.
Yeah.
They don't have the financial stability to hold on to their library and say, hey, we'll give you your paycheck a year, 2 years from now. It's not sustainable. So being able to be creative now, being able to try to see if you can shift under one of these other distribution companies at the same time, maybe trying to promote yourself and directly distribute is going to be how some of these guys survive. So we'll see. The more news that we get with what's going on, we'll throw it out there. But like I said, what it does to this show, it kind of just limits us in regards to what material is going to be available to us in the long run. And it's only going to be whether it's going to be from PRH or whether it's going to be from Lunar and what they carry that falls under the small press or creator-owned titles.
Well, the other sort of workaround that some shops have been doing, especially our shop specifically, because again, this Plattsburgh warehouse shuts down right before the holidays, and now for about 2 months, things have not been arriving in time for Wednesday release day coming from Diamond, and that includes a lot of toys for the holidays and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into that. That's another can of worms. But so finally, after basically turning every day of the week into a receiving day because of this situation, and a processing day, because there's books you owe to people, and you try to do all that get all that done on Tuesday before release day, but then books that should have been out for Wednesday are arriving on Friday, and then you got to refill those orders again. You're kind of chasing your own tail after a while, right? Yep. So a lot of books now coming from Diamond, we're gonna push that release day back on our own about a week, because unless the information tells us we're going to have it in time for that Wednesday, but now going forward, just to be cautious, we're going to be getting books about a week past release day in some cases. And so in that case, if it's a new number one that we're really excited about, we're just probably going to review that about a week and a half later, since we do this show on Monday anyway.
Right.
So my advice to you is, if you think we're going to review it and you think we're going to like it, try to order it and secure a copy in advance, because I know we recommend books on a Monday and people might want to try and track them down. They're already sold out, because these are lower print runs. Boy, a week and a half later, I feel really bad for you. If we really like a book and you can't get your hands on it. So.
Yeah. And that's, a lot of shops that are working with the kind of volume that we work with are doing something similar, because I listen to a bunch of other podcasts as well. And some of these guys, they own the comic shops, and they're like, yeah, I'm not opening up books on, Wednesday to receive them, to process them, and then have them on the shelves. It's just too much, or stuff is just coming, on Thursday and Friday of that same week. So they're not opening up books on the Friday of the same books that those books are supposed to be released. They just hold them to the following week, which is kind of what we're doing as well. So if you find that your books are a week late, this is why. There's still stuff that's going on in that whole world of Diamond distribution that it's just not consistent with the delivery dates. Sometimes they may get it on that Monday of that week, which is where, most comic shops will process their stuff so they can have it out Wednesday, but they're getting stuff either on the day or after. So it's just a matter of being patient. My concern is what's going to happen in the long run and how fast is it going to happen, because that's going to limit the amount of material that we have access to that we want to read. I swear to the Almighty, this will never be a DC Marvel podcast. Ever.
No. Why offer say we get 1 million subscribers on the YouTube channel? We will review an issue of Bigger Batman, some milestone issue. Issue 12 if it happens that fast. Issue 100 if it takes that long. But that is still on the table.
It's gonna have to be 1,000,001 subscribers, because there's enough podcasts out there to deal with those guys. But yeah, it's. A lot of people complained about Diamond. I had my complaints with them as well, but they're titans still in the industry. It just sucks that a lot of these publishers that were just starting to come up, publishers that we even enjoy, they may fall to the wayside because they're not going to be able to hold themselves up financially. Yeah. So we'll see. Hopefully within the next, I would say, if anything, it's going to be within the next 6 months that we really know what's going on. My other concern is Free Comic Book Day, right? That was something that was started by a comic book shop, and Diamond came and they started just promoting, and it's 20 years of plus a free comic book day. So whether or not free comic book day is going to happen this year, I know that books were already ordered for this year, so I'm assuming that it'll happen. But will it be the last free comic book day? Will that evolve into something else? Will Lunar step up? Or I don't think PRH will. I think it might be something, because Lunar is different. They're not a publishing book company. They're just a distributor for what would have been DC, and they've taken on a whole bunch of others. But they might be in the spirit of doing something like a free comic book day. So we'll see. And that was probably, it was not nerve-wracking. It was the most exhausting effing day of the year, but so rewarding, because you get to see a whole bunch of new people come into the shop. You get to see a whole bunch of people light up with seeing comics, especially kids who are coming in for the first time. People dressing up in costume. There's just a different feeling, a sense of camaraderie that day. It goes by in a fucking blur, but it's almost like taking a roofie and not knowing what the hell happened to you. Because then you wake up this sore the next day, and you're just like, holy shit. As long as it's not your ass, you're okay.
But it's interesting because, like, a couple things too. It's like, Diamond wasn't completely inept, and they did a lot of good, in their run. And again, it's not over yet. We're not going to have the funeral.
John, I think you're
what? You're glitching. You're a little glitchy on my end. Can you hear me? Oh. I don't know if I'm still here or he's gone. This is fun, guys. What's going on? So I'm just going to vamp a little bit. Hopefully we'll get him back. But one of the things I was kind of saying was that, Diamond did have their value. They did do a lot of things for the industry, especially, like Angel said, promoting smaller, smaller publishers. So really, for some enterprising rich person who thinks that they could do this better, what a great opportunity is on the table for them. If you are somebody who wants to help distribute small press books and get them out there, that this is probably your opportunity. This is your chance to become the Diamond of the indie comic small press world, right? So that's something I'm kind of putting out there. Who knows? That'd be really fun. That'd be really cool. Think we got Angel back?
I think so. Yes.
All right.
I'm on my iPad now. I have no idea what happened to my computer. It just shut down on its own.
That was so weird. Yeah. That was
hell?
Like when the truck, cut out my internet.
Yeah. We're going to go with that excuse.
Yeah. So I was saying was what a great opportunity for somebody to, maybe start up a distribution company for the small press indie, world out there. I would agree. It's just so hard. I mean, first of all, the capital to start something like that, and then to break into the industry without being listen, it's just a matter of, we have two right now. I think if Lunar steps up and takes on some quality people, it'd be fantastic. But it would be fantastic if there was something for small press independent. But I think it would have to take somebody big, like Image, to kind of break off and do that as well. Yeah. So we also shouldn't have the funeral before the corpse is present. And there is a chance that they could come out of Chapter 11 bankruptcy with a restructuring and a better mission statement going forward. I think it's a 13-week process. They've just completed week 1. So we'll see. But it does kind of bring up, we mentioned the idea of release dates too, because I'm wondering now, eventually will release dates sort of go away. I remember there was that point where Lunar was releasing stuff on Tuesdays, everybody was on Wednesday. Lunar eventually was like, okay, we're going to go to Wednesday and just be with everybody else. I know that there was a lot of people that were upset that New Comic Day was Christmas Day and New Year's Day, both days when a lot of shops are traditionally not open.
Right.
But digital release was still those Wednesdays, So a lot of shops were really upset that the digital on sale date, had still happened, even though that they weren't open. And so it does kind of, and with books running late, a lot of things for various reasons and things like that, it does sort of make you wonder the value of a street date, or if someone's going to kind of want to do away with a street date. I personally like a street date. I like to know when something's
Yeah,
coming.
yeah.
And I think when it's something that has a narrative, you kind of want everybody to experience it as close to the same time as possible.
Right.
It's fine for a toy to not have a set release date because the toy is the toy, right? But something that the outcome could be spoiled. You kind of want that level playing field. But it does worry me that we might not necessarily get release dates. We might get release weeks. It'd be up to whoever to say what day they want that to come out.
That's another interesting thing about Diamond, right? When they were the only ones around. They set the rules as to when comics came out.
Yeah.
And then Luna came in and said, no, we're going to do things on Tuesday. And you have Tuesday and Wednesday, and that just made everything fucking crazy.
Yes, it did.
For a while. But now, and like you said, they're not out of the game yet. We don't know what's going to happen. These will be problems for later on if it does happen, where you just have two distributors, and who knows? I mean, maybe somebody comes in and buys out the distribution portion of Diamond and then wants to work with all of the smaller press stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, you had 7 artists who got together and said, this fucking industry is driving us crazy, and we're going to do something that's going to shake up the industry. And that was 25 plus years ago. And they're the third biggest around as far as publishers are concerned.
Yep.
So maybe there is somebody, that loves it enough. And I'm going to throw his name out there, Robert Kirkman. I know he's not going to do it because he has enough shit on his fucking plate. But I was listening. That brings me right into the next segment. So, all right, for you guys that are out there, what we love is independent creators who want to bring their ideas to life. And we love to read stuff like that. So having people like Kevin Learn, who we just had on the podcast recently, if you haven't checked that out, just go to the YouTube page and check out the interview with Kevin Learn about his book. It's crazy how there's so many different creative ideas out there that I like. That book I probably would have never picked up on my own, only because of the cats. But then reading it was fantastic. And then just to throw me through that fucking loop at the end that just kind of it messed with my head, which was fantastic. So how many more great stories are out there that we don't know about, that people have out there? And I think being able to have access to that and bring that to you guys is why we do what we do. Mm-hmm. Everyone knows Batman, everyone knows Spider-Man, everyone knows Superman, Wonder Woman, but there's all these other great character development stories that are out there, just really creative things that are out there that we want to be able to share. And I think the Diamond aspect of it that we're concerned with is they were an advocate for all these small publishers that they did distribute. So we don't want to lose access to that, and we're hoping there's going to be a place for that. So that's why I mentioned Robert Kirkman, because he came into this industry and just kind of shook it up. And everybody knows him from Walking Dead and Invincible. But he's like true fucking medium lover for what we love. And so I was listening to an interview that he was on today, and this is going to be sort of like my tidbit or my advice. No, not even advice, because it was his advice, but sort of like his advice through me that I really, really appreciated for what he said. And I think where we are in the industry, because if we look at comics, they've been around for a long time. Yes. Yep. 30s, 40s to now. So we're going to get over probably 100 years soon into comics. And it's a medium that's been around for a while, and we want it to be around even longer. And how do you create longevity through a medium that's been around with stories that have probably been told over and over and over and over? And he mentioned something that was very interesting. He was like, you have these huge titans of stories that have been told, not just in books, but in screens. You take the Avengers, for instance, multi-billion-dollar fucking franchise in movies. And then you have comics that go back all the way to the 60s, 70s stories. And he says, what happens when you have somebody who watches the movies and then comes into a comic shop for the first time and wants an Avengers story? They see volume 1, volume 2, 2, 3. Does this volume 2 go to this volume 3? Does this volume 1 go to this volume 2? Kind of thing. So it's become so convoluted in that respects when you're trying to onboard new people to this medium that it can be quite frustrating. Even us, when we're looking at stuff, when we're looking it up for people, I don't remember this shit. Holy shit, there's 3 volumes of this. When does it go back to volume 1? Kind of thing. But then you look at things like Walking Dead, Invincible, Preacher, Spawn. These are all independent creator-owned titles that only have 1 volume running through them. So Spawn is up to volume 25, but it's only 1 through 25. It's not a 1-1 here and a 1-3 there and a 5-6 there. Invincible, 1 volume all the way through. Walking Dead, 136 issues all the way through, and then it ended. So he was at the notion of you don't want to frustrate, especially with more things coming out. You don't want to frustrate people. You want to give them one cohesive thing that they can follow and say, hey, I'm coming in for Walking Dead. Great. Here's volume 1. And then you just continue all the way through if you want to finish off the story. And it may be too late for those guys to be able to do what we're talking about. But I think for you guys as a creator, creating something, think about creating one sequential story that is just one main story. And yeah, you'll say, well, Spawn has Medieval Spawn and all these other stories. Yes, but there's one main story that runs all the way through. And then they have these offshoots that are, 4-issue minis that you don't have to read in order to get the main story. Mm-hmm. So when he was talking about that, that kind of threw a light bulb in my head because that's what he wants to do with what he's doing now in the Energon-verse. Yeah. So Transformers is not going to relaunch. Right. Transformers is going to run for as long as it's going to run. 130 issues, 200 issues. It's going to be that one thing. So that when you come in and say, hey, I want to read Transformers, more than likely in the next 5 years, I'll probably be just recommending Daniel Warren Johnson Transformers because it's going to be cohesive all the way through. I mean, IDW had it for a little while, but then there was how many Transformer books?
Right.
5, 6, 8. So Robert Kirk was like, nope, 1 Transformer book, 1 G.I. Joe book, 1 Void Rivals book. That's the Energon-verse kind of thing. And then every now and then there might be like a special that comes out. And then obviously there's going to be a crossover that's going to happen with those 3 books because they just run over. But yeah, if you want longevity and you want people to come in and enjoy this medium without being frustrated, you need to make it easy for them to follow. Especially because there's no standards. Like we talk about the fucking barcode problem for so long that people can just do whatever they want to do. And for the most part, most people follow the same kind of guidelines. But if you want to be creative because it's a creative medium, you can change that shit all up. Mm-hmm. You can change the spine to have no numbers on it at all and be really fucking frustrating with just titles and stuff like that. But I think what Robert Kirkman said was really crucial in regards to, listen, if you don't want people to be frustrated and want to be able to jump in, then just have it as one. That's it. It can be broken up into 26 volumes, but there's not a new volume 1 that starts, 5 years in or a month in. You go from volume 1 to whenever you finish 26, and it's done. It's done. And I thought that was so cool because I look at the shelf sometimes, and especially with the big 2, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
I always tell people don't get too hung up on reading, 80 plus years of comics from year 1 to present. Like, find something, at least with the luxury with like a trade paperback, they're going to provide you for the most part a full story.
Right.
And it's sort of like, if you like that, then if you want to backfill and kind of go back, that's great. You want to go forward, go great. We're all used to nonlinear narrative thanks to George Lucas and Quentin Tarantino. So it's and on the other end of that too, it's like if you pick up like a random volume of an Avengers book because you're expecting the movie, first of all, understand the movies take their liberties, but also say you don't enjoy that. Don't write off the Avengers entirely. You just might have picked the runt of the litter, right? So there's always an opportunity to sort of rediscover something too.
Right.
Like, oh yeah, I read that Avengers arc and I really didn't like it. Oh well, that writer's a piece of shit anyway. The guy who wrote after him is much better. Check that one out. Or the guy who did it before him, check him out. So that's the other thing too. It's like because it can be frustrating to, like you said, to onboard as a new reader, as a new fan,
Yeah.
wanting to capture that excitement that you felt from the first time you were exposed to these characters. And look, you're always gonna chase that dragon. You're never going to fully replicate the thing that got you excited about that character in the first place, but you could always come close. And if you don't come close, again, 85 years worth of comics out there, you're gonna come close again.
Yeah.
You know?
And then that's the thing, right? So you got those stories are close to being 70, 80 years old. So I get it. But I think they've just done a really poor job in being able to separate those eras.
Yeah.
So the books, I honestly think the books, like the older stuff, like, listen, I've attempted to read Secret Wars so many times, but it was different. It was written in a different time.
Yes.
So if you grew up in that time and you read it, it was fucking phenomenal and fantastic.
Yeah.
And if you read it now and you read it then it's nostalgic.
Mm-hmm.
But if you read it now and you didn't read it back then, it's outdated.
Oh yeah.
Language and it's not to say that it's not terrific. It's just different. And I think that if they took that stuff and they just branded it as Bronze Age, Silver Age, Modern Age, it would make it a lot easier for consumers and people who are trying to get people into the books a lot easier. Yeah. Because for me, honestly, I would never take anybody who's seen one of the Avengers movies and given them a Bronze Age or Golden Age book, ever.
Right.
It would be more of the modern stuff because that's going to be closer to what they're used to.
Sure, absolutely.
And if they want more, then introduce them to some of the earlier stuff because it's like having American cheese and then brie cheese. Fuck that brie cheese. I want American cheese all day, kind of thing. I know it's a bad analogy, but yeah, there's just a different flavor and a different taste. And I think that stuff is for the people that are really into it. And I think for the casual reader, for the one that just watches the movie, they need more of that modern age stuff. And dude, it's like a fucking sea of just it's crazy. It's crazy. It's so frustrating.
It can be. Anyway, I mean, I also like isolating by creator. You know, like with Swamp Thing, there's a lot of Swamp Thing out there,
right?
You know, but everybody looks to the Alan Moore as the high water mark for Swamp Thing, and that is appropriately branded as Alan Moore's Swamp Thing run in 6 trades.
Right.
And if you want to go after that, hey, here's Rick Veitch's Swamp Thing run. You know, like so that I like that kind of works because I think that's part of why. In recent years, why they decide to stop and restart with new volumes is a new creative team comes in and they want to, capitalize on that first issue of this person doing this book, you know.
Which I get, but then they got to be consistent with it because they constantly change it.
Yeah.
But so if we get somebody to come into the shop who's just seen Walking Dead, for the first time and they want to be Walking Dead, fuck, that's easy. Just bring them
Walking Dead number 1.
Here's volume 1 all the way to here. If you want the compendium here, you watched Invincible, here, boom, here's number 1 all the way through. So there's something to be said about that. And that would be mostly for, I'm talking about independent creators.
Sure.
You may want to build a universe, you may want to have multiple this and multiple that, but just think about having that one all the way through. I think, and Robert Kirkman was onto something. It was like if somebody follows, an artist or a writer, more so a writer, they're going to pick up, 2, maybe 3 books a month that writer has. But if they're doing 5 or 6 books, they're probably not going to get 5 or 6 books of that particular reader. So you want to keep, it's not about quantity. It's really about quality of stuff that you're delivering out. So I just thought that what he said was really just spot on in that respect. And I respect him for that. And I think, having a plan for Transformers to be one story all the way through to 130, 200 issues, whatever it is, without deviating and becoming another title or 5 other titles it's not ingenious. It's just fucking, that's the way it should be done. I mean, and if you want to create longevity, I hope that Daniel Warren Johnson stays on as long as he can with that title. And I think who's writing G.I. Joe, Williamson?
Yep, Joshua Williamson. Yep.
Yeah, so there's just and then the creative team on top of that is really key. But I think having the idea of, all right, this is what we want as a linear story all the way through for G.I. Joe, for Transformers. You're not going to have 5 Transformer books and 40 G.I. Joe books. You had the mini issues that introduced the characters, and it was great because what he said he introduced those mini issues before the regular G.I. Joe 1 issue is because he wants you to get to know those characters.
Yep.
Be familiar with those characters, so that way when you saw G.I. Joe, you would already feel familiar with the book, especially if you didn't know what G.I. Joe was.
Yeah.
I mean, granted, most people that are reading it grew up with the cartoon, and they're probably in their 50s, late 40s. But yeah, I mean, I can give my daughter, who's 17, I can give a young kid G.I. Joe and let them enjoy it. For this one, I mean, some of the stuff is kind of like out there, but yeah, listen, I think what he said was just spot on in regards to, especially if you're a creator, just have your story. Don't worry about multiple titles. Just have the full run through all the way through. So,
and if you are a creator, an indie creator who out the gate has these ambitions of multiple volume restarts on your book and multiple titles, dream big, more power to you.
But get one done.
But get do one at a time. Yeah,
it's all good. It's all good. All right, so that's our 2 cents of news for this week. We hope all the best for Diamond. I mean, we want this industry to stay around for a while. It has been, shooken up, and we'll keep you posted on what's going on. But our concern is, what's going to happen with the books that we review. How often are they going to come out? How many publishers are going to fall? And we'll see what happens from there. All right, so we do have a book from last week or the week before.
I think it was
the week before.
Yeah.
We do have one book that we did review. We read together. I'm going to go ahead and nope, we're not going to go ahead because my computer is off. You want to talk to it?
Yeah, sure. It is from Dark Horse Comics. It is called Behemoth.
Behemoth.
Yeah, I think we both kind of dug the concept of this.
Yeah.
This is written by Grant Sputori and Ryan Engel. Art and colors by Jay Martin, lettered by Frank Zvetkovic, and then of course you're edited by Megan Walker, assistant edited by Tara McCarran, designer Drake and Reeves, digital art technician Betsy Howitt, and why not president publisher Mike Richardson of Dark Horse. Elevator pitch logline: Speed meets Godzilla. That's all you need to know. That's that comic, and it's worth it. It's really wild. It's really crazy. It moves at such a breakneck pace that you barely have kind of time to breathe, the way that this all builds upon itself. And yeah, I really dug it. I thought it was a great concept. I like where it kind of ends up at that first issue. I don't think there's very many surprises as to who the characters are that we're going to be dealing with. I think they're pretty clear cut and introduced pretty solidly. But yeah, man, if you want to see Godzilla destroy Manhattan, and a bus trying to escape Godzilla, that bus can't go under 50 miles per hour, or else it's going to get eaten. Oh wait, maybe it should have gone faster. Angel, what do you think?
It was one of these things that I picked up and I kind of rolled my eyes and I was like, oh my God, I've read this before. And I didn't expect much from it, but I was pleasantly delighted. One, I really enjoyed the story. For me, as we read these books, we're looking for a couple things. We're looking for entertainment value, but from the creative end, I'm looking for pacing. I'm looking for art, color scheme, creators, all that stuff. And it all just seemed to work really, really well. I mean, like Daniel Warren Johnson has this, and I've been mentioning his name like I'm in love with him or something like that. Just has this really, like, it's not tight, it's like not super loose, just art style that just, but it promotes motion and it invokes emotion, if that makes any sense. And he's doing it with robots, which is crazy. This was something similar where it wasn't super tight lines. It's just really loose, and it's almost sort of like Monet-ish, I want to say. So if you got up really close, it wouldn't look tight. But if you pull away, everything just kind of falls into place, which was really nice. The color palette was really soft. It was just two-tone, so you had your flat color and sort of like a highlight to it. I liked it because it was really simplistic, and it worked for this book. The pace of this book, from the very beginning, you already get a freaking monster. Then you get sort of like this cutaway into your protagonist, who I believe is going to be Sarah in this instance. Her story, and then right back to the creature at the end. So really, really solid. You got Sarah, who's this, hardworking girl who just is having trouble with her food truck, I believe it is, because she's trying to win a contest, and needs to get her food truck from the mechanic, who's Manny, who I believe is going to be the other protagonist in here. And while this is all ensuing, and it's crazy because it made me think of like, what would happen if like Godzilla actually struck Manhattan? Wait. He would strike, but it would be moments and moments, hours, minutes, whatever it is, later on that we would actually see and hear or feel that. So while this behemoth, see how what I did there, is actually attacking the city, she's in another part of the city going through her drama. So simultaneously, there are people being eaten alive while she's worried about winning a freaking food truck cooking contest kind of thing.
Well, the other statement too is physically where she is in that moment, because she actually has a real job at a warehouse for a big online shopping company, right?
Yes.
So the fact that this warehouse is so fortress-like, that she's in there for her shift and she gets out and chaos has already ensued, but they're so isolated in this not quite Amazon, but yeah, it's Amazon warehouse, that they're so isolated, like they're in prison, that they have no idea what's been going on right outside the building. She walks out. So
and if the artist or the writer did that intentionally, great. If it was unintentional, because you did have two simultaneous things going on at the same time, they were unbeknownst to one another. They were just in juxtaposition of one another. I've not seen that for a while. I mean, we see stuff that's clearly where you're shifting from one moment to another moment, but these are two moments happening at the same time, but being told separately.
Yeah.
Fucking great.
Yeah.
It's great.
And one of the things I really like is, or that I look for in artwork, is for artwork to make sense, to not have to question what I'm looking at with my own eyes. And what I like about the J. Martin style here is that it is detailed, but it's not overly detailed. So you get that sense of energy and motion and panic, but you recognize that part of Manhattan, like it is recognizable enough, but it's not overly detailed. So it's terrifying, but it's also not, it doesn't turn you off when you see this carnage happen, right? There's still a cartoony element about it. And then again,
it's a comic.
It's a comic. It's gotta be. Yeah, exactly. And because I think I don't know. I think you give this concept to some other folks, and they might get a little heavy-handed with it, and really up the drama and the torturedness of it. And this just is a sense of fun about it that I really like. Like your other, I think your third, because I think we're dealing with three protagonists here. And I think this guy's sort of your Keanu Reeves cop character. And when you meet him, he has just come from the vet because his cat died of kidney disease or whatever. And it's sort of like, what a really funny way to do the tortured hard-boiled cop, right? It's not that his wife just died and he's Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, eating the gun. His cat died and he's upset, but he still goes to work.
Like I said, I wasn't expecting a lot. I really enjoyed it. If you like kaiju stuff, Godzilla stuff, even if you don't, it's not Godzilla centric or kaiju centric. It really is about these characters, and then this is happening to them because of this big creature. I'm going to keep with this. I mean, Dark Horse has been, on our radar for a while because Michael Richardson knows how to put shit out there. So kudos to you, brother, for doing that.
But Godzilla meets speed.
Perfect tagline. That's it. Just don't slow down. But unfortunately, they did. Yeah, that ending was great. But go check it out. Behemoth from Dark Horse Comics. It should be on the shelves, hopefully. All right, kiddies. That brings us to the end of the show. So if you like what you heard, click subscribe, especially when my computer blacks out and I'm dark for like 30 seconds. Better yet, invite like 100,000 friends of yours to come onto the podcast and subscribe to be here every Monday so that we can bring you what we love to do, which is review small press independent comic books. Better yet, if you're a creator like Kevin Learn, who was just recently on, and want to come onto the podcast, talk about your project and yourself, amazingactioncomics.com/podcast. Fill out the form. John and I would love to have you on the show. Also, we're accepting submissions for our online library. It keeps growing. We publish everything through globalcomics.com. I'm going to put this on here next time so that you guys can see it. Our library is on there. You can read some of our stuff for free. If you're looking to publish your book, submit. Just go to amazingactioncomics.com for more information. If it's worthy and finished and good and all good, we'd love to put you on our online library. You can also visit the site for events and news of shows that we have coming up. And last but not least, please, most importantly, support your local comic shops, because without them, we would not be able to do what we love to do, and that is read comics. John's going to keep it short today. Hey, brother, where do you get your comics from?
Well, I get my comics at The Joker's Child in Fair Lawn, New Jersey. There you go.
Oh, that's short? Good. I like that. All right, if you're near Fair Lawn, New Jersey, stop by. They've been there for over 30 plus years, and they know what they're talking about. John, who's our fellow historian, is there, and he can talk your ear off about anything. So it's all good. All right, kiddies. Until next time, please be amazing, stay amazing, and read something amazing.